Fantastic. Okay, let me just make sure that that is not broadcasting out loud. It isn't. Amazing. I have muted the YouTube video. So, what I'm going to talk to you about today is how you can go about applying for a Coding Black Females Bootcamp. I know that lots of you look like you have applied. So, we've got a lot of people who have applied for entry to tech. We also have a lot of people, and then we have a good split between AWS Restart and Return to Tech as well. So, hopefully, this session, I'll be able to alleviate fears, but also give you more information about the different courses and let you know how to be successful on the bootcamp too. So hopefully we will get a chance to go through all of that. So let's get started. Right. So as you join, by the way, do let me know what it is you're interested in applying for or what you already have applied for. It gives me a really good view as to where to focus our information today. So for those of you who haven't heard of Coding Black Females before, which I'm assuming you all have because you're all here right now, Coding Black Females was established in 2017. I started it because I wanted to meet more Black women in tech, and now we have a range of programs for people who want to develop through the industry as well, either at entry level or people who are more experienced. We've got opportunities for everybody with us. We then also have a community now of 20,000 people all over the world, and we have opportunities starting for people who are both in the US and in the UK and in other countries as well. So we're really keen to support people globally with the opportunities that we provide. With Coding Black Females, hopefully what you've seen is a range of events, jobs that you can apply for as well, with other people, other companies that we work with, alongside the training that we provide too. To give you a quick overview as to what we've done over the last few years, we launched in 2017, as I just said, and we started with events there. 2018, we moved on to doing our more events and created our job board before starting our mentoring programs and partnering with organizations in 2019. 2020 is when we actually started delivering our boot camps, where we started with our full stack development and Black Coder bootcamp. And then we moved on to do more boot camps, have more members all over the world and more opportunities globally as well. So we started our entry to tech bootcamp last year. And the year before that, we started Return to Tech and AWS Restart too. So we've been doing a lot of work to make sure that we can get you all trained in the skills required within tech. Here are some information about the boot camps that we do. So as I said, we started doing our boot camps in 2020. We started out with Black Coder, which was our full stack development boot camp. And we have now expanded our range to have AWS Restart, which looks at cloud services, Entry to Tech, which has a focus on software engineering in Java, and Return to Tech, which essentially covers software engineering or cloud services, but also with a layer of technical architecture and leadership. And that one particularly looks at people who have been have worked in tech in the past as well. Our complete application process is, as some of you will have already seen, we have an application form that we'd like you to complete. That's then followed by a technical assessment and a screening video. And we use all of that information to gather an understanding of your background and what you want from the course, so that we can then progress you and support you in the right way if you get an opportunity on one of the boot camps. To go into a bit more detail about the programs that we have, AWS Restart, on that particular program, bootcamp, we look at a range of skills. So we'll train you up in cloud computing, operating systems. Sorry, my phone is ringing. Operating systems. We also have cloud security, networking, Python as well. So we have quite a few opportunities there that will support you with developing your skills. Alongside that, Python, AWS services as well, making sure that those are actually very relevant for a lot of roles that people have in tech at the moment. The eligibility for this particular bootcamp, we don't actually have much eligibility there. So the key thing that we look for is your interest in technology. So we'll assess you against that. So we'll be looking at what you've done in the past. Have you done short courses? Have you been doing online training? Have you shown a real interest in tech previously? The outcomes that you'll get from that are the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner qualification. And also, we hope that you'd be ready to work in the tech industry as well. And we have seen people go through this program and successfully gain roles in tech. The next cohort for AWS Restart will be kicking off in September. We then also have our Entry to Tech Bootcamp, which focuses on software development. Currently, the focus of that is Java. And we're looking again for no specific technical eligibility. However, we do want you to have done something in the past. So you may have done an online course, you may have done some self-learning to just show that you do have an interest in tech before you apply. And the reason for that is that these boot camps are extremely intense and we're going pretty fast-paced as well. So we want to just make sure that you've got everything you need to be successful. And if you're starting from absolutely no information, no knowledge, and you don't even know if you want to be in tech, it could be quite difficult to get through it and be successful. The outcomes that you'll get from that are the ability to build applications. So we'd expect you to be able to build maybe some APIs in Java and be able to do some back-end development. You'll be able to work as part of a team as well, and you'll have an understanding of how to deploy your application out to the cloud too. And the next cohorts that we have for that will be starting in May and June. There'll also be cohorts starting later on in the year as well. But if you have applied recently, we'll be looking at the May and June cohorts to allocate you to for that. And then on our Return to Tech Bootcamp, that is more of the same. So software development, or it could be cloud, or it could be that you do full stack development. But the layer on top of that is also technical architecture and leadership. That focuses on people who are currently in tech and have been in tech for around at least 2 years, but also people who would like to return to the industry after a career break. And again, the outcome from that is we'd expect you to be able to build applications independently, but also as part of a team, and have leadership skills with that too. And the next cohort for that kicks off in May. So I know some of you will already have seen how to apply. You're, either about to start the process or you're in the middle of the process somewhere. But this, I'm going to provide information now about how to actually go through the application process that we have available for you on Return to Tech. On all the bootcamps, sorry, they all have the same application process. So, firstly, we have an application form that you will find on the website. So on all of the websites that you'll go to for either Entry to Tech, Return to Tech, or AWS Restart, you will click on the Apply Today button, which will take you to the application form. You can also scroll to the bottom of the page where you will see the application form available there as well. We're really keen to understand your motivations, your experience, some of the demographic information is important as well, and also just a bit about your background. So why do you want to be in tech? If you've been in tech before, why do you want to continue that journey, and so on as well? And what is it that you're looking to get out of the bootcamp? So do you then want to work in tech on completion? So that's what we really want to understand about you on your journey. I say this all the time, but there is absolutely no need for you to use ChatGPT or Gemini or any other of those large language models or AI support systems that you could be using, mainly because we're reviewing it with our eyes. And because we have to sit down and review everything that you write, we'd rather read the bullet points or the prompt that you may add into ChatGPT rather than the outcome. And we can tell when you've used ChatGPT, it is a lovely read, but there's no need to write as loads and loads of paragraphs there of information. The key thing we want to understand is a direct answer to the question is perfectly fine. And as I say, bullet points would be fantastic if you can. We'd like to know as well, anything that you've done previously. Don't shy away from saying, I've done 5 courses in the past, and this is what I covered on this one, this is what I covered on that one. Because that will show us that continued journey, that continued interest in tech as well. If you've already submitted and you didn't include this information, don't worry. You can add it to your screening video. You can send us an email. We do get a lot of emails with follow-up information as well that we can then add on to your application. So don't worry if you've not previously added all of this, but it would be great to get a clear understanding of your previous tech experience. Let us know as well if you've done any previous roles in tech, even if it's not, hands-on software engineering, but maybe you've worked as a project manager or you've worked in a technical company in a different kind of role, because that then shows us that you've probably got an understanding of the industry and how that works too. So feel free to cover that information within your application, because we use all of that to gain a full understanding of your background when we're assessing you. After the application form, you then move into the technical assessment. So after you fill out your application form, we send you over an email saying, congratulations, you're through to the next stage. That's if you're not automatically rejected. But if you're through to the next stage, we'll send you a link with the screening video and the technical assessment that needs to be done. And all you have to do to access that technical assessment is click on the link in the email. I will say there are two different types of assessments that we have. For return to tech and entry to tech, you will be doing an assessment on this platform here called Coding. But for AWS Restart, you'll be doing an assessment on a completely different platform. And the test that you'll do on Coding is very focused on your coding skills. A lot of people do worry that they don't have enough skills to actually attempt the coding test. But what I would say is when we send you that email, there's information in there about how to approach the test. There's a video with me running through my approach to the test. There's also a lot of resources in there as well to support you on your journey. Don't worry as well if it does say that there are 5 days to complete it or 1 day to complete it. If you need a bit more time, that's okay. Take that time to complete it. We'd rather you feel comfortable when you're doing the test than rush to get it done and feel as though you didn't quite get to attempt it in the right way. But in the email, like I said, there is a video and resources that you can attempt. In the test, there's also a panel on the left-hand side which shows you which basically is a Google search window. So when you go through there, you can start searching for different things that you could use in your test. So I see a lot of people who will look through the simple adding question and say how to do simple adding in JavaScript. I would say you might want to break the question down first and then have a look at how you can use Google. When you get to Google, use the resources that are from MDN and W3 schools, as they'll provide an explanation as to what a topic is before it gives you the answer, if that makes sense. As I said as well, give yourself that time to attempt the test. Some people may try and do it whilst you're doing something else. It's probably not going to go so well for you. What you'll want to do is give yourself an hour to dedicate to actually having a good go at the test. And when you're doing it, click on the run code button to make sure that the test passes. And also add comments as well when you're going through the process. And when I say comments, that's kind of a description as to the steps that you're following to try to answer the question. And the reason that that's useful is that we actually watch the attempts that you do when you will be doing that coding. And sometimes if we can see that the comments, there's a clear understanding of the approach in the comments, but the code isn't quite right, then we could also look at accepting you on that basis as well. So it's very useful if you can add some clear comments when you are attempting a technical assessment. The last time we ran this session, I did run through the Coding platform at the end of the session. If you would like me to do that today, more than happy to run through something there if you let me know. And we can start running through something together about how we break it down and how we approach it. But everything that I'm talking about or that I will cover at the end of the session is already in the emails that you would have received after you've applied. So after the screening video, after the technical assessment, you can then also do your screening video. And what we would like again, so within the screening video, there is a section with a screening video with all the questions that we'd like you to answer. We've said that we'd like videos to be up to 15 minutes long. They don't need to be as long as that if you feel that you can answer the questions in a shorter amount of time. And when you also submit your CV, do make sure that that CV is tech relevant too. So if you can update it with any work that you've done previously, that would also be fantastic. For people who don't have a CV available currently, you can download a CV from LinkedIn as well. So do have a look on LinkedIn and download your information from there if you don't have a CV that you've written previously, but you have been keeping your LinkedIn up to date. I've seen a couple of questions in the chat, so I'm going to answer those before we move on to some of the success stories. But if you do have any questions about these elements of the application process, I'm more than happy to answer them at this stage. But I'll answer these questions that I can see in the chat now. So someone's asked, so you can watch back the bits before we hit submit on the code. So we can actually see what you're doing whilst your code is actually in progress. So we can see that then. We don't tend to look until you click the submit button. But as soon as you go onto the Coding Black platform and type in your email address and start one of the technical assessments, we can see that you've entered and started working on that platform. Yes, I will show a demo of coding on the platform as well, as I know a lot of people aren't very used to it. I did have a video in this presentation about how to do it on the technical assessment platform, but I think I just cut off the edge bits, which means that you can't actually see some of the elements that I'd like to show. Another question, where are you accessing this form from? So the email that you have received, which says, congratulations, you're through to the next stage, please click on the technical assessment, or please click on the screening video, it's in that email. So you should all receive an email once you have submitted your application with the next steps. Okay, so the difference between AWS Restart and Entry to Tech, the difference between the two. So AWS Restart is a course with a focus on cloud services. So we'll be looking at AWS specifically as the cloud platform that we focus on, but you'll also learn things about operating systems, networking, cybersecurity, a little bit of Python as well. So you'll cover quite a lot on that. And then also on Entry to Tech, you'll be learning Java development. So they're very, very different courses. I don't know if that answers your question. Well, I'm hoping it does. I'm going to move on to some of the success stories, and then I'm going to go through a lot of the other questions that we're getting because they're not specifically related to the application process. So one of the questions that we often get from people who do apply for our boot camps is it actually possible to get a job after I've done this course? Is that a realistic expectation? And the answer that I would give is absolutely. So we have three people that I want to talk to you about who have done, one's done Entry to Tech, one's done AWS Restart, and one has done Return to Tech as well. So we have Colleen here, who joined one of our CBF bootcamps as a head receptionist. She attended events with us across the year as well, one of them being the Entry to Tech course and the Entry to Tech launch event that we had last year. And through that, she then applied for Entry to Tech and was successful with getting onto that. She completed Entry to Tech this year, and she's just started a role at UBS as a software engineer after going through that bootcamp. And that was only a 20-week bootcamp as well that she completed. So it is absolutely possible to go through our Entry to Tech bootcamp and gain a role in tech. Another person who's been through one of our programs is somebody who joined Coding Black Females as a clinic coordinator. So she worked at the NHS. She's actually completed that last year after doing all of the different sessions. It was a very intense course. I believe there were 3 sessions a week, plus a Saturday, full day Saturday as well, and also attended events across the year. And she's this year joined a company called Principal One as a consultant. So that's somebody else who's been through our boot camps and then gained a role as well. We also have somebody who did our Return to Tech Bootcamp. So she joined our Return to Tech Bootcamp as a DevOps engineer last year. And she attended again a range of workshops and events. She started Return to Tech in, I believe it was August last year. And then by the end of the year, completed the course, gained some certifications, and has this year joined BAE Systems Digital Intelligence as a senior consultant. So these are people who have joined different courses with us. We've seen fantastic outcomes. And if you're on the fence about whether you should apply, I would definitely recommend it, because there are great outcomes that you can have on the other side. So if you've got questions, I'm going to go through the questions in the chat. And then I'm also going to enable people to turn on their microphones if they would like to ask any additional questions as well. And then after that, what we'll do is we can run through the Coding Black platform and have a look at how we approach the test on there. And we have somebody who asked, when will we receive feedback, even if it's negative? I will say that we are working through a lot of applications at the moment. So we are getting a lot of applications through across all of the boot camps, and we're reviewing and sending feedback as and when we get, as and when we're able to. So every week we are sending out batches of either people who are being waitlisted and rejections, and we'll start to send out acceptances as well soon too. So expect it soon. I can't give you an exact date, and we don't really have a timeline between application and when you're actually going to get that feedback, mainly because our applications are all open and they're ongoing. So expect a response soon, because the boot camps will be starting next month. We then have another question. I've already submitted my application. When should I expect to hear back? So yeah, I've just answered that. What's the training schedule like for entry to tech? So for all boot camps, well, for most of our boot camps, we are looking at 16-week cohorts, and the cohorts will all run for 2 to 3 evenings a week between 6:30 and 9:30 p.m. And then on AWS Restart, we also have Saturdays as well that you will be attending those courses. So the general outline of expected attendance time is between Tuesday and Thursday, 6:30 until 9:30 p.m. And for that, you'll be doing that over a 16-week period. How long is the Entry to Tech program? So Entry to Tech will last for 16 weeks as the minimum. We do have one that is sponsored by UBS with some roles at the end as well. And that particular program will last for 24 weeks, because you'll be learning additional content about investment banking on that course as well. But typically, we are looking for a 16-week program. And but if it's sponsored by UBS, at the moment, we're looking at an additional 8 weeks there to learn the UBS content as well. Someone's asked, can I do Entry to Tech first and then AWS Restart in September? So in a single year, you can only do one bootcamp with us. And when I say a single year, I mean from April until March, because that's how our funding works. So in that 1 year, you can only do one bootcamp, and then the next one you would do in the next financial year if you haven't yet found a role in tech. Somebody has asked or mentioned that they're 44. Are they likely to feel out of place? Absolutely not. We have people on our courses from the age of probably, I would say, 19 right up to 65. And it's a huge mix. I would say the majority of people are probably around mid-30s, probably, that do our courses. But you absolutely not feel out of place. It's a huge mix of people that come along and do our programs. And I would say that if you've got experience from previous industries as well beforehand, you'll find it easier to then find a job when you're looking to transition as well. How long does it take to get feedback? So again, we're currently still in the process of reviewing applications. So you'll hear feedback over the next few weeks about whether or not you've been successful. Are you ever going to have this course available to people outside of London? So Return to Tech, currently, our current sponsor is London-based, so the roles are available in London on completion. For Entry to Tech, we are offering that in the west of England, so around Bath and Bristol. We're also offering that in the United States. So we're looking at people in around New York, where the roles will be based on completion, if they are successful. And then also we do have some courses that are available outside of the UK as well, but it all depends on whether or not we have funding opportunities available to fund people to go through those programs. Can we apply for more than one cohort for different bootcamp courses? You can apply for as much as you like, and then we'll allocate accordingly based on which one you're most suitable for. Somebody said they're very confused right now. What's the difference between AWS Restart and Entry to Tech? So what I will do is I'm going to go back to the page which outlines all of the courses. So I don't know if you can see that, but we have AWS Restart and Entry to Tech. They're both entry-level courses, so you don't need to have previous technical experience. The difference is that you're learning different content on the courses. So on AWS Restart, you'll be learning cloud computing, operating systems such as Linux, cybersecurity, networking, Python, and then with all of that, we'll layer on AWS cloud services. Once you've finished all that learning, you will then gain, you'll go and do an exam and gain a certification from AWS as well. With Entry to Tech, that one actually covers very different contents. That's covering Java, which is a different language to Python, and it's not covering any cloud services either. So what you'll do on that is you'll be coding a backend application with that and learn a bit about software design and how to work on a technical team as well. And then at the end of that, you'll actually build a project which you'll be assessed on. So the courses are very different and the outcomes are different as well. So you don't get a certification, for example, on Entry to Tech, but what you will get is a project that you've completed. So I hope that clears some of that up for you. Do let me know if you'd like more information on those two courses. Is it only that courses are only available for London and the US? At the moment, we have courses available across the UK and across the US as well. I would say what we do continue to say is do apply, because the reason that we have a US cohort available now is because we had enough US applications to then justify trying to or getting that sponsorship or funding to deliver a course out there. So when we see the demand, we're able to respond to that. But at the moment, yes, that's where the boot camps are funded. You can apply from anywhere, and on occasion, we're able to accept people outside of those regions as well. But that's at the moment, that's where the boot camps have availability. But there are courses that you can do with people applying from anywhere as well. And they tend to be our short courses. So I completed code in Python for my application for Entry to Tech. Will that lessen my chance of landing a place on the bootcamp? No, we don't look at that and think, oh, she did Python, therefore not suitable for the bootcamp. That's absolutely fine. So we want to know that you can apply coding knowledge or coding or technical knowledge to the question, because then learning a different language will be a lot easier than if you don't know anything at all. So we don't use that against you. Use any language that you feel comfortable in coding in. Is it free? Absolutely. So all of our courses are free for you to apply for and for you to be involved in. We don't have costs there available. We do, however, require that you do complete the course because we do rely on funding in order to make these courses available. Some courses also do have bursaries associated with them. And if you don't complete, or if you don't progress in the way that we'd like you to, you may be required to pay that back as well. So that's what I will say, is that we don't charge, no, but we do have an expectation that you will complete the course because it does cost quite a lot for us to run them and make them available to you as well. Is this suitable for a complete beginner? If you've done absolutely nothing before and never touched tech at all before, any code, you'll probably struggle on the boot camps. I would say that AWS Restart may be one that's slightly more accessible if that's the case. However, If you've done absolutely nothing in the past, you'll probably find it a bit tougher to stick it out throughout the boot camp as well. So we do look for people who have done maybe an online course or some self-learning or even a short course with us or another organization to show that you do have a real interest and passion for technology. I've not applied. Sounds like you have a lot of applications. Will I have a chance? Absolutely, you do have a chance. We assess everybody, and if you are suitable for the course but we don't have a space, we will keep you in our wait list for the next cohort that's available. So if you do want to apply, don't worry about the fact that we have a lot coming through, because we would love to still find a way to accept you onto one of the courses that we'd like to see you on. By the way, I'm from, I think, Nigeria, Kenya. I applied despite seeing the requirements that you must be from London or the USA. Are you guys going to consider Nigeria or Kenya or Africa, basically? Yes, we are. So we are constantly looking for people that can support us in delivering courses there. Typically, when we're funded, it's based on location or it's based on job role on completion. So we do want to do that. We are actually looking at opportunities that we can have at the moment for people who aren't in regions where we do have funding, but we will consider other locations as well. When we see a lot of applications coming through, as I said, what we are doing is then we're talking to organizations and we're talking to funders and saying, look, we've got a huge demand here. How can you support us to meet that demand as well? So we are looking at it so that we can provide you with additional support. Does everyone in the Entry to Tech cohort be given a chance for interview for the sponsored company, e.g. UBS? Yes. So if you land on a bootcamp that is sponsored by an organization, you will get an interview from that organization. Absolutely. They offer as many, well, some of the companies that we work with will offer roles to people who are suitable, basically. So I would say absolutely, with companies where we're sponsored in that way by a single company, you will get an interview. For boot camps where we're not funded by a single company, we will then work to find organizations that we can put you in front of and give you support with as well. So we'll do our best to get you in front of companies for interview. We can't guarantee interviews, unfortunately, just due to the nature of market changes and availability of people as well. But we do our best to get you in front of companies. So for example, on our last cohort, I believe about 14 people have just been interviewed for our recent cohort, which completed, I think there were about 30 people on that. And we're still looking for new companies to do some of those interviews too. What I would say is it's really up to you to also go out there and apply for jobs. And where we see the most success is where people do go out there and apply for their own roles, as well as giving them support as well. Which one is better, AWS or Entry to Tech? It depends on what you're interested in. So they're teaching very different skills. The sort of roles that you could get out of the AWS bootcamp are things like DevOps engineer, cloud engineer. You may also be able to apply for things like cybersecurity because of the security module. Alongside that, you could also look at like cloud computing, those sorts of roles too. Whereas Entry to Tech, the sort of roles you'll be looking for is software developer, software engineer. They're the typical roles that we see people land on completion. So that's what I would say is it's not really about one being better than the other. They have different outcomes, very different outcomes. Does the Entry to Tech cohort start towards the end of June? It starts towards the beginning of June, actually. So I think we have one starting on the 3rd of June, the 13th of May, and the 10th of June as well. So that they're the start dates for our Entry to Tech cohort. When is the deadline for the application for Entry to Tech, and how many spaces are there on the bootcamp? So we don't really have deadlines anymore for our bootcamps because we tend to have cohorts starting all the time across the year. So we don't have deadlines. What we do have, though, is we'll start allocating you to different cohorts around 2 weeks before they start. So do keep an eye out on when those cohorts are available or when those boot camps are due to start, as we will be sending out acceptance emails as and when we're able to. When will I get an update on my application, which is now waitlisted? So we are allocating people to courses as we speak. So as I say, application acceptances or cohort allocation will be coming out over the next few weeks. How will it be assessed as to whether you're suitable for the 16-week or 24-week entry to tech cohort? So we have the 16-week, which is essentially like an open bootcamp. So that's where we don't have a particular company involved, but we are able to provide. We don't have a particular company involved, but we will get multiple companies who will hire potentially at the end. And the 24-week cohort that we run, the 24-week entry to tech cohort that we run, with that particular one, that one is sponsored by UBS. So the difference is really going to be that the one that's sponsored by UBS, we'll be looking for people who have expressed an interest in finance, expressed an interest in how they may work in tech, and we'll probably take a slightly closer look at your background as well to see if you're aligned to gain a role at somewhere like UBS on completion. So we'll be looking at you in a slightly broader way as to where we think you may fit more suitably. So do express if there's a particular industry that you're interested in working for, because then we'll look at that when we're trying to allocate you to cohorts too. For someone who has never coded before, is entry to tech suitable? What will the technical test look like for entry to tech? So if you've never coded before, what I would recommend is that you use the resources in the email that you receive when you complete your application. We've seen people who completed the application, they did their first technical test and they failed, but they had a really strong application. So we contacted them and said, look, if you go through the learning material and the resources and try again, you may pass and you could actually have another go. And then we've seen those people go on to pass. And then they're actually doing quite well on the course now. So I would say if you never coded before, doing the short courses that are available online could actually be a huge benefit to you, because we'll see you that you can use that knowledge to then put that towards a technical assessment when you're going through the course. Okay, if you don't have a tech background, how can you demonstrate on your CV that you have the knowledge required, especially if you're starting afresh? So if you don't have a tech background, what I'd expect to see on your CV if you have done something before is maybe in the education section, details of previous courses or previous boot camps that you've attended. If you don't have a tech background, maybe you'll show that you have an interest in tech, or maybe if you've worked in like healthcare in the past, the reason that you want to move into tech is so that you can improve on health tech or something like that. So we'd like to look at things like that. If you've worked in tech before as a software engineer or in a different role, just include the information about that as well. So basically, if you're starting afresh, what we're looking for in your application and in your CV is any courses or any learning that you've done in the past. And that's something that I'd recommend that you do when you're also looking for application. What I'd also say is that's something that I'd recommend you do when you're actually applying for jobs as well. Show the education background of roles or of technical courses that you've done in the past, because that will really, really help you to show employers that you've actually got a real interest for technology as well. Let me see. Is AWS Restart 24 weeks? No, it is 16 weeks long. Entry to Tech sponsored by UBS. Is the job guaranteed? Absolutely not. So you'll need to pass the bootcamp and you'll need to pass the interview as well to gain a role at UBS. So it's not guaranteed, and you are still required to apply for the job and make sure that you are suitable for that position. When you apply for courses, how long is it until you get a response? It's basically we're sending out responses as we go. So we'll send them continuously. And is it 20 weeks? We have one that's 16 weeks and one that's 24 weeks. Last time I talked about the possibility of starting a course focusing on machine learning. Do we have more information? So we are currently looking at two ways that you could learn about machine learning. One would be a Python with machine learning course that we're exploring at the moment, and it won't be until the end of the year. So I won't have any more information on that for, I would say, a few months for the time being. We're also looking at having a pathway that you complete on AWS Restart that would also look at machine learning, but it's still very early days at the moment, so we don't have an answer for that. We have somebody who said, I'm from the USA, New York, to be exact. Are there any programs for me? Yes, there is an entry to tech that is currently open for people based in the USA, so please apply. We've had quite a few applications from the US and we are reviewing all of them at the moment, so there are opportunities for you if you are based in the USA. Are there any short courses? At the moment, there are no applications open for short courses. However, there are self-led courses that you can find if you go to codingblackfemales.com/member zone, which provides information about different courses that you could do, such as data analytics, cybersecurity, project management, IT automation, and that's available to anybody across the world as well. So anybody's able to do those courses. Does entry to tech include JavaScript? No, so entry to tech has a focus on Java, not JavaScript, so you won't learn JavaScript on that course. Any similar organizations, similar to Coding Black Females, that support Black men into tech? I believe Colour in Tech do some work in that space, and we also accept applications from men as well onto our courses, and we have had a few men complete the courses that we run, so you're welcome to apply to our courses too. Is the course offered to those in full-time jobs in the tech space already? So Return to Tech is suitable for people who have already got tech experience. So we are looking for that on our Return to Tech program. On AWS Restart and Entry to Tech, you do not need to have previous tech experience, but we are looking for previous learning experience. Full-time jobs, that's absolutely fine because all of our courses are run in the evenings. So hopefully you'll be able to get back from work in time to do the course. And all of them will start at 6:30 as well. Can I apply for Return to Tech if I only have 4 years of residency in the UK? You may not be eligible if it's only 4 years, and that's basically based on our partner. So they put you through vetting that requires you to have been in the UK for at least 5 years, I believe. I would actually recommend still applying because on occasion, they're able to say, actually, by the time they finish the course and the vetting is done, they would have been here for 5 years. So it could be possible still. But what it also means is if we have other sponsors that come along who don't require that vetting, you could be eligible for those programs too. So I would definitely recommend that you go through and apply for those. How many spaces are available on each course? Typically, we have between 20 and 30 spaces available on each of our programs that we run, and that's typically across the board. Occasionally, it's less, but most of the time, we're looking at 20 to 30 spaces available. Is there any way I could find out more information about my result to the course? Absolutely, we'll be sending results out for the rest of this week. So do keep an eye on, do let us know what course you've applied for, and we'll be sending out some of those responses this week and next week. I intend to apply, but I'm confused about how to go about getting and uploading the screening video. Kindly revisit this part. So with the screening video, let me go to the page on the screening video. So with this, within the email that you receive after you've done the course, after you've applied, complete the application, there is a link for you to upload your screening video. And when you click this link, there will be a form. What a lot of people do, what I'd recommend, is that you use your phone and record yourself on that, and then save that and upload it to the form. That's absolutely fine. What you can also do is if you have a computer, you can use a webcam, or I actually use Zoom a lot to record myself in videos and then save it as a file on my computer and upload it onto the form as well. So that's what I'd recommend for that. Is any part of the course done in person? Yes. So the courses typically delivered completely online. However, we tend to have a kickoff session, a midpoint session, and there could be a session towards the end as well, where you'll need to attend in person. And those bits of the sessions are mandatory as well. So it's really a chance for you to meet other people on the course and also to meet mentors that you may have been allocated as well. And many boot camps near Manchester. So people in Manchester, you can apply for any of the courses that we have available currently. The stipulation is that the roles that are available will be in the regions that we specified. So you can apply for the course, you may be accepted, but we'd expect you to be looking at roles in Manchester and London currently, if you're applying within the UK. There is no cut-off date for applications, so you don't need to worry about that. We're more than happy to continue to accept applications, and we'll let you know once you've been allocated to a course. Am I eligible for entry to tech? I moved to the UK last year. Yes, you are. Please go ahead and apply. If you're able to work in the UK, then we are able to accept you onto a course. The typical starting pay for entry to tech roles, we're looking at between 30 and 35 is what I've seen typically as starting salaries. I've seen some starting salaries for entry to tech around 45k, but typically we're looking at about 30 to 35. If you're accepted onto entry to tech, can you apply to another course later? You can apply to courses later, but we can only accept you onto one course each financial year. The courses are all delivered online. If you've got less than 2 years of experience or slightly less, yes, please apply if you've got slightly less than 2 years experience for return to tech, because we can still accept you or potentially accept you onto that. What I will say is please highlight any other technical experience that you have, any learning, anything you've done, if you've done a boot camp in the past, because that could enhance your application as well. Do you still have spaces available for the May cohort of entry to tech? Yes, we do. So please get your applications in so that we can start allocating you to that. So we do have spaces left for that. If rejected, will we be told the reason, e.g. the foundational tech knowledge needing development, location not meeting the region? We don't typically offer, we don't offer it as standard because we have so many applications that we get. When we reject applications, we can't offer everybody information on why they've been rejected. But if you do email us and ask for the reason, we'll typically be able to respond to you for that. So if you are rejected, do get in contact and we're happy to let you know the reason. I applied for entry to tech. I have issues with the coding assessment. I will show you what that platform looks like towards the end. When would the next cohort be for entry to tech if we don't get onto the May or June cohort? September is when the next cohort for that will be. Okay, I'm actually not going to answer any more questions after the one that's come in at 1:20. So I'm just going to get through the last ones that we have here now. Am I eligible for return to tech? I've moved to the UK, but still waiting for feedback. We're still reviewing. So if you only just moved to the UK, you're probably not going to be eligible because we need people to have been in the UK for at least 5 years for that particular course. Which of the 16-week cohorts, which of the entry to tech cohorts are 16 or 24 weeks? So the 16-week cohort is the one where we have any company that you can apply for. The 24-week cohort is the UBS cohort. If you express a particular interest for UBS in your application, we're more likely to lean towards looking at if you're suitable for the UBS cohort that we do have available. And if you've expressed an interest in finance, so the stronger applications are probably going to be more likely to be put towards UBS and the investment banking cohort. But also once we fill those spots, then we will be allocating people to the 16-week cohort that we have available. Is the interview with the sponsor at the beginning of the course? Interviews with sponsors are at typically at the beginning, depends on the partner. So with UBS, they tend to interview towards the end. With BAE Systems, for example, they'll interview at the beginning. So it depends on the course that you've applied for. Which email should we send any updates to our application to? So if you want any updated information, send it to academy@codingblackfemales.com. So I'll write that in the chat now, so that if you do have any questions, you can send it there. I will say as well that if you just reply to the emails that we send you, that goes to an inbox that is viewed by somebody as well. So you can just reply to the emails that you receive. After completing Entry to Tech, can you be accepted for AWS Restart starting in September? So if you completed Entry to Tech already, yes, you could be accepted onto that if it's not in the same financial year, or if it's in the same financial year, then probably not. So we'll have to look out for that as well. Is there a way to apply in general and be considered for future courses without specifying a specific course? What I would say is, if you apply for a course and we think you're suitable for something else, we're probably going to assess that anyway and let you know. So you don't have to send different videos in for different courses. That's fine. Just complete your one application, and if we think you're suitable for something else, if we review you and we have to consider rejecting you, then we will look at how we can allocate you onto something else. However, what I will say is that your reason for wanting to apply for AWS Restart could be different from wanting to apply to be on Entry to Tech. So you might want to actually do different applications, but you can use the same video for both. Do the courses run through August? Yes, typically they will do. If they start before August, they will run through that. If the course starts in May or June, surely there must be an application deadline. So the application deadline, like I said, we're continuing to accept applications. We'll start allocating people from now and over the next few weeks. So obviously, if it starts in May and you apply the day before, we're probably not going to be able to accept you. But if the start date, typically we are looking at applications to be in two weeks before a course starts. And I believe that's written on the application page as well. Will the mandatory in-person dates be on the weekend or in the evening? Typically they're in the evening for mandatory in-person sessions. Return to Tech is that Java. So Return to Tech actually looks at full stack engineering at the moment. And Python may be coming in the future as well. When does the cohort for Return to Tech start, and is there still availability? It starts in May, and yes, there are still spaces. So please do apply if you're interested in Return to Tech. We still have space available, and we are definitely looking for people who could get involved with that. We have courses start on all of our boot camps in spring, summer, and then autumn as well. So expect courses to kick off in around September, October time is the next cohorts that we'll be having across all of our courses. Is the only cohort May, or is there another? Can we find out about more about the curriculum for Entry to Tech? So the curriculum for Entry to Tech is available on the website. So if you go to the Entry to Tech web page on the website, which I'm entering the link in the chat now, you'll be able to find the curriculum details there. Let me add that in for you. Fantastic. So if you head there, curriculum information is available on the website for Entry to Tech. I'm not Black. Am I still eligible for the course? Absolutely. We don't reject courses based on ethnicity or background, but we focus obviously very heavily on Black women who are interested in being in the industry, Black women and non-binary people. Do you have to live in London to apply? No. You can live anywhere, particularly across the UK, to apply for the UK courses. In the US, you can live anywhere in the US to apply for the US courses. And then the other options that we have available, we are looking at the self-led courses that we have available online, and you can be from anywhere to apply for those as well. So we did have a couple of people who asked about the the technical assessment. So I'll quickly show you what that looks like so that you can get a view of that as well. So if you bear with me, I will switch over to have a look at the technical assessment page so that you can see how you would approach it. But thank you for all of the questions. If anybody does not want to watch me go through the technical assessment, you're welcome to disappear. And I hope to see some fantastic applications come in from more of you very, very soon as well. But bear with me whilst I just get the details up of approaching the technical assessment. Okay. So when you apply, I will show you what the page looks like when you actually go to Coding. So once you click on the link from Coding to say, have a go at attempting the technical assessment, you will see this page. And one thing I would say, I hope you can all see that, is that the first thing I would definitely say is, please, will you use the same email address that you've used previously when you've applied for courses with us? So I'm going to use my email address. I'm going to use a slightly different one so that I can actually attempt the assessment again, but just enter your email address there, the same one that you use for your application. I understand, so tick that box. You can actually go back and reattempt your assessments as well, so don't worry about that. And then click on Begin Assessment. You do need to be on a computer to do this, rather than a phone. So you will need to do that so that you can actually do the assessment appropriately there. So if you then click on Begin Assessment, what you will see is the different challenges come up on the right and Submit Assessment. What you'll need to do is go through each of these challenges, do the challenge online, and then once you finish, click on Submit Assessment. So if we start with simple adding, and I will not be completing this because it's the real assessment that you will be doing. But what I tend to say to people is, first of all, I'm just going to explain the layout of how the screen looks, because I know that some people may not be familiar with this. So first of all, on the left-hand side, what we have here is the question. So have the function simple adding and add up all the numbers from 1 to none. For example, if the input is 4, then your program should return 10 because 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 4 equals 10. For the test cases, the parameter num will be any number from 1 to 1000. It then gives you some examples of what inputs would have different outputs and so on. And this is the bit that I was telling you about, where you can actually use Google to look for different resources. The section in the middle is where you type code, and depending on how comfortable you feel with different backgrounds, what you can do is actually change this to light and dark, if that's easier for you to see as well. And you'll notice that there is an unlimited amount of time available for you as well. So you don't have to like only have 15 minutes. You've got unlimited time available to you. Another thing that I will say is you can change the language that you use to complete the assessment as well. Some people may feel more comfortable in Java or JavaScript or Python, so you can change that language. I'll leave it as JavaScript for the time being. And then we also mentioned that on the right-hand side, I'll make this a bit clearer, you can run the code, you can run test cases, and then you're going to submit. So you can type different numbers in here, so 123, for example, and click Run Code, and you'll see that it gives you an output. And that's because when you click on Run Code, it's running and executing this code here in the middle, and it's outputting the result to this function. So when you run the code, it is logging out basically and outputting the result that you have in here. So when you actually start with one of these, there's always a function that's provided to you, and leave the top of the function, the top and the bottom of the function as it is, And there's always a function call here as well. And don't remove that, because if you remove that, your code will not run and your test cases will not pass. And you'll get a fail when we look at it later on. So I always suggest to people, first of all, is to break down the question using comments. And what I mean by that is simply writing a comment, and in JavaScript, you write a comment with 2 forward slashes, and then, I don't know, part 1, loop through the numbers from 1 to num. Part 2 is add numbers. 2 is add numbers together. You might want to think of it like that. I'm not saying this is how you actually answer it, but this is how you might want to approach it. The next thing I would say is we do have these resources here that you can use. So you could type in something like, you might want to type in how to loop in JavaScript. So as you can see, there's a bunch of sponsored options. I tend to scroll past the sponsored options and go straight for something that's maybe from W3 Schools. And I also suggested that MDN was another one that you could use. So if you click on W3 Schools here, JavaScript for loop, it tells you how to write a loop in JavaScript. It tells you the different kind of loops that you have as well, the general syntax for that, and an example of what that would look like. MDN, another useful site for resources. But if you scroll through here again, very much the same. It gives you a good lot of context about how it all works, different types of loops that you could use, and how to use them as well. So once you do that, so you would add in, the code for how to do a loop. You may also want to then search for something like how to add numbers together in JavaScript. So as you scroll through again, so you pass all of the sponsored resources, and if we look at W3 Schools, but then also there may be an MDN one, but if we look at the W3 Schools one, this one is actually just explaining numbers to us. So how do numbers actually work within JavaScript, which actually could be a really good place to start if you're trying to understand. We then here see something called adding numbers and strings. So it details to us how to add numbers together. And you can even try things out as well on W3 Schools before you do the code over there. So you might want to think of, what you could Google, how you could approach it before then adding that code in over here as well. So once you finish that, run your code. And I haven't added any code, so that's why the output is currently the same number that I've inputted. But the next thing you want to do, when you think it's right, when you're happy with it, run the test cases as well. Because then that says, okay, your input was 12, but your output was 12, and I actually expected an output of 78. And it will do the same here for 140. So we've said, there it is, input was 140, but the output was 140. That's wrong. I expected it to be 980, 9870. So you're going to want to run those test cases before you submit. But once you're happy, you can then click on the submit button. Are you sure? Submit solution. And that then will run lots of test cases for you. And you'll have completed that first assessment. Once that's completing, you'll see the status update. You can run the code again. You can redo the challenge if you're not happy with it for whatever reason, but then you can also go on to continue the assessment. So you can see that you've completed this one now. For the next couple, start the challenge, do the same process, complete your code and click submit. And then once you've done all of them, click on submit assessment. In my case, obviously, I've not completed them because I haven't run through and done those assessments. But then you need to click on submit assessment for us to actually receive it. So once you click on that, click on OK. and that will be saved, it will be sent to us, and you should also receive an email saying thank you for completing your assessment. So that's a very high level overview as to how to approach it. It might feel daunting, but honestly, the resources that we provide do give a lot of information as to how to approach it. And I've seen a lot of people who, once you take a step back and you have a look at those resources, who do go on to do the assessments and do very well at them as well. But that's everything I'm going to cover. I hope it was informative for you. I hope it's dispelled any of the questions that you have. We are running them every 2 weeks, and you are able to email us as well if you have any questions. For the poll, by the way, I don't know if you can see the outcomes, but it looks like a lot of you were applying for entry to tech. We have some who are looking at return to tech and others who are also looking at AWS restart. So very, very excited for all of you to get involved in the boot camps that we have coming up. And we're always open to hearing your questions too. But enjoy the rest of your Thursday. I hope you have a fantastic day, and we look forward to seeing all of your applications, and I'm sure they're going to be absolutely incredible.